All right, thanks very much, Tim. Well, perennial NBA All-Star Steve Nash has been a force to be reckoned with his entire career, but away from basketball, the Suns guard has had to deal with his diet, making some changes off the court to try to help him a little bit more on the court. And to talk about that today is naturopath Dr. Sunil Jain, who works with Steve. He is from the Rejuvena Health and Aesthetics Center here in Arizona. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Steve was actually recommended to you by a friend of his wife. So he comes and has this food sensitivity test, which is something that you do. Why is that important?
It's very important because it tells you which foods are good for you, which foods are not. So you can be eating a healthy whole food diet. And if you're eating foods that the body doesn't like, then it can cause problems, inflammation, fatigue, poor recovery, etc.
And you may have no idea it's because of the food that you're eating. You
Correct.
may just think it's other factors.
Yep.
Let's talk about the 5 most common food sensitivities. And I know Steve has 1 or 2 of these. Mm-hmm. And they are sugar.
Yep, we got sugar, we have wheat and gluten, dairy, soy, and corn. So when I do this testing on patients, I tend to find 1 or 2 of those in most people's categories.
And so what are the alternatives? What can we eat? I know quinoa is something that we can eat, but let's put up on the screen some suggestions for folks who may have one of these sensitivities.
Yeah, so what I typically find is wheat and gluten comes up quite often, and probably the most out of all the other on the top 5 list. And so I just kind of brought some examples of some alternatives.
Now, you can get these. What's nice is that a lot of supermarkets and chains like Trader Joe's, they're becoming very savvy to this.
Oh, absolutely.
So they're making it very easy to find these alternatives. What are some of this?
So we've got, for someone who likes pasta, you can substitute the traditional flour-based pasta with something that's made from quinoa.
Okay.
And quinoa is actually a complex carbohydrate, so you're not getting that simple carbohydrate aspect from it. And it's also high in protein, and it's also got all 9 essential amino acids in it. So it's actually healthy for you.
I've actually found some great quinoa salads at different places.
Correct.
Again, they're using it a lot.
Yep.
And all this stuff, tapioca loaf, I've never even heard of this.
Yeah, so someone who has a wheat or gluten sensitivity can still enjoy bread and sandwiches and whatnot by eating alternatives that are made either from brown rice or tapioca. You've also got some tortillas that are made from tapioca and rice. Someone who likes to eat, like say, for example, pancakes in the morning, breakfast tends to be a big thing when we cut out some of these food sensitivities, can use buckwheat flour, and buckwheat tastes really good, and it's gluten and wheat free.
So what kinds of things does Steve Nash eat? I want to do what he's doing.
Well, he eats
what is his diet like?
It's a pretty clean diet. I mean, he eats a lot of just whole foods, a lot of nuts, fruits, and, just wholesome foods. Really doesn't eat much processed, refined stuff, and, you just extracting the maximum amount of energy from that.
When you work with an athlete of his caliber, I mean, do they have issues that are a little bit different than maybe what I might have, or are they pretty similar to what everybody else deals with?
Well, they're very similar, but the biggest aspect is that, their bodies are stressed beyond belief, so the mental and physical stress that they endure, you kind of have to overcome that. And so diet is even more important in a professional athlete, as it's very important in everyone's lives, but it's even more so in those guys.
All right, what other things do you do over there at Rejuvena Health and Aesthetics? Because I'm thinking aesthetics, that means exterior, beauty.
Yeah, so we do a lot of things on the outside as well as, our goal is to try to get the inside as cleaned up as possible so that it reflects on the outside. While you're doing changes on the inside, then we can also complement, the looks on the outside via laser treatments or cosmetic injections, things like that.
Isn't it amazing, though, just what it does to the skin when you change things or tweak your diet? I'm amazed by that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a direct reflection. And so if your body is good and healthy and feels great on the inside, it's a reflection on the outside.
Will you tell Steve hi for us when you see him next?
I sure will.
You'll probably see him before we do. Dr. Jain, thanks so much. We've got the information, Kaylee, on our hotline and our website if you want to find out more about what Dr. Jain does. But this whole concept of what you're eating really impacts how you look on the outside, how you feel on the outside and inside is kind of taking off.
Yeah, and I think it's obviously a good thing, right? Hopefully it's becoming a trend, and hopefully we can get some of these really healthy foods to become more affordable and more accessible for everybody, right? Because it certainly makes a big difference in the way you feel